Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished entrepreneur from Zurich, Switzerland, Mr. Boris Manhart. Boris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Ashutosh. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Boris is the founder of Growth Unltd. He's the co-founder of Numbers, which is a fintech company. He's the CEO of CodeCheck, which is a shopping app. And his big passion is to impact and help other founders get it right from the start. So, Boris, before we talk about Growth Unltd, tell me about your own successful journey from an entrepreneur to helping entrepreneurs.
Well, it all started with the coincidence, basically. So I was never meant to be an entrepreneur. I built basically a project that got acquired from a corporate together with some friends, but it was more, let's say, a fun project. So it wasn't really meant as a startup. But I got kind of infected by this virus of startups and entrepreneurship. So next step was my own agency that I've led for 10 years, and I worked for different big corporates like Microsoft and Nestle and Unilever, for example. And we were focusing on digital projects basically back then, shops and campaigns and so forth. And that experience led me to co-found one of the first fintech incubators in Switzerland and probably in Europe, called Central A back then. We had basically the idea of creating different startups in the fintech space. And my job was to build the teams around that. So I was focusing mainly on people. Back then, we had one very interesting case, which became Numbers. Right? So in I guess many years ago already, right? So I can't recall the years anymore, but this is basically the one we identified as most, could become most successful. So we focused fully on Numbers, basically the whole team, and we got quite some traction early, got a unicorn, I guess, in 2018. It's still existing. It's today, after pivoting, it's a Bitcoin wallet, but it's still there basically. Amazing. And I moved on after that. I got basically introduced to a team that was working on a existing product called CodeCheck. CodeCheck was one of the, I would say, first B2C apps focusing on sustainability, right? So the aim was helping users to find more sustainable and healthier product while shopping. So they scanned the barcode of the product and saw what's all the backgrounds regarding the ingredients, production, CO2 footprint afterwards as well. Became quite a success. We had millions of users, raised VC money as well. We became a couple of times the most downloaded app of all free apps in Germany. So you can imagine it was quite a party, when we bet all the others like Google and Facebook and so forth. I did this for I guess around 6 years. So I led the company for a couple of years as CEO as well. I started basically as partner and led it then as CEO for a couple of years. And I left it then during the pandemic. I guess it was a kind of like a phase of change for lots of people, right? Right. I as well look back at my career, what I want to do in the future and so forth. So I decided to leave the company and started basically as an advisor working with different startups, helping startups to.
And I guess that's how Growth Unltd started.
Exactly. Growth Unltd, the company started only 6 months ago, but I was basically a freelance advisor during the time. So worked with different startups. And most importantly, I worked on a structured approach to get to product market fit, right? So that took me probably like 6 or 7 or months, to really come to the point, right? To build something usable.
Very interesting, very interesting. So when you talk about supporting startups from product to startups to product market fit, tell me about the kind of work that you do to support these startups.
Exactly. Well, first of all, I guess it's super important to understand the importance of product market fit, or what product market fit actually is, right? So product market fit is when a startup company finds a suitable market for their product, or vice versa, right? Builds the right product for a certain market. And I cannot, point it out how important it actually is. There's many experienced people like Mark Andreessen, who says, the only thing that matters is getting to product market fit. Or Mike Maples, the founder of Floodgate, he says he's never seen a company that have reached product market fit and that didn't become successful. Right. So it's like basically this magical, like a step you need to pass to get successful as a startup. And this is what we focus on. So it's basically what we want to, or what we work on with our startup, our portfolio companies, is to answer the 3 questions of who, what, and how. So who is their customer and what are their problems? What is the solution to their problems? And how they solve it in a way that it generates value for the customers and for the startups as well, right? Which is super important, because they need to build a business model above, that. And so it's not just having lots of users. It's really about having lots of paying users.
Well said. And over the years that you have been supporting startups, what are some of the trends you have observed more recently in the startup landscape, and how are you adapting to that?
Well, one thing obviously is the huge trend of generative AI that like lots of our portfolio startups use as well in their products, but obviously for productivity reasons. We too we use ChatGPT for in many ways to create content, to post as well, and so forth, right? But it's not yet human, so the human part needs to be there, the creativity. It needs to be authentic when you post, right? So it's a help, a very good help, obviously. So that's important. And the other thing, what I see more and more is that people becoming aware as well of the term product market fit. So it's not just a myth anymore. People really try to focus on that and understand that building a startup is not just luck. You can do it with a structured way.
Right. Well said. Well said. The next question, Boris, says that mentorship is a very crucial aspect for the success of startups. How do you match up startups with mentors, and how do these relationships impact the growth of startups?
Yeah. I would say anyway, like mentorship is one of the most crucial topics as an early stage founder, and later as well, right? So you have so many hats on that it's just not possible to really, master all of these different roles you have. So you cannot be a psychologist, a designer, an engineer, a UX specialist, a market researcher in one person. Nobody's born with that, right? So it's super important to have experts, to have mentors. But not only for that, as well for the typical, I call this the operational jungle. So what happens when you start something, and especially when you get some first traction and you have a small team, you suddenly get stuck in like tons of things to do, right? So you just don't know how to focus anymore, what to do next, and so forth. I guess having someone aside that helps you to, that keeps the helicopter view basically, and helps you to focus on the things that matters is extremely important.
Right.
Back to your question. Sorry, I haven't answered it yet.
That's okay.
How do we do that? First of all, at Growth Unltd, we believe that we don't believe at scaling our own business, right? So we're more a boutique. So we work with only up to 10 startups because we want to be involved in each and every startup. That means I'm the mentor as well to all of the startup founders we're working with. Then we have kind of an expert board for all things that we cannot, serve or we're not experts in. This can be, like some typical, let's say, questions on design or engineering, machine learning, or marketing, right? So there we have our experts, and we connect them with our startups so they can get, quality feedback from directly.
Well said. And one of the other challenges I have seen with people who invest and who mentor is how do you balance nurturing innovative ideas with the practicalities of business growth?
You mean nurturing, you mean like the challenge between Growth Unlimited and the startups?
So what happens is a startup founder has lots of amazing ideas. You make investment in them, you find them mentors, etc. But then you also want the company to grow.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's two different phases in terms of growth. Like the first part is really product market fit. So that's the main focus. And growth in that stage means you need to have a certain audience to test your idea, right? So you don't need to invest a lot into marketing, just enough to have this order. You have a sample to test with. Then as soon as you get to product market fit, as soon as you have the evidence that you can actually scale, then it's a different time or a different time starts the scaling phase, right? So which means you need a team, you need investment as well to be to acquire customers and so forth. It's a totally different topic, right? But at the first stage, I think, it's really focusing on product market fit, and there's still a lot the founder can do. You don't need a huge team for that. You can really go the lean approach, and then basically spend your money once you know that you spend it right.
Well said. My next question, Boris, is about failure. I'd love to get your perspective on the role of failure in the journey of a startup, and how does Growth Unlimited support startups when they run into problems?
Yeah, well, I mean, failure is a big part of it, right? So, I mean, especially when it comes to this early stages where you basically test, so we'll fail a lot. It's all about experimenting. The art is to do this with experiments, right? To fail early and learn. If you just build something huge, invest a lot of time into it, and then just launch, it will most likely fail and would probably most likely lead to a doomed startup, right? But the idea is to really test with small experiments and find the right ways, because nobody knows what's right.
Right.
So failure is, I would say, kind of a feature of the whole thing of building a startup, right?
Yeah.
But you should kind of just prevent the full failure. So just, basically that you crash your whole startup. Me personally, I think that, I failed a lot and I learned a lot. So this is something I try to as well, where I try to help our founders to not to do the same mistakes again, because there's some very common ones. And unfortunately, most of the founders do it again and again, right? And this is not necessary.
Right.
And just one quick advertising. So we have a newsletter as well. So if people want to sign up, right? So I always talk about my failures and give some tips as well. So I think it's important to be open as well and share those missteps, right?
Well said. And in a very competitive startup ecosystem, what strategies do you employ to help your startups stand out and build a strong brand identity?
Yeah. Look, I think the first important milestones is creating a compelling value proposition and testing it, right? Testing it in the market. The value proposition consists of three pieces. One is, it's always towards your customer, right? So you can have different customer segments and you have different value propositions to them because they have different needs. One understanding your customer segment that you're targeting. That's one part. The other is your benefits, what you deliver to your customer. It's important to be, when it comes to benefits, to be much, much better than your competition, right? So there are performance benefits. So if you're probably, let's say, if you build an electric car, you want to have a much longer range than the others. If you only let's distinguish yourself from the competition by this range, right? Then there are delighters, like the wow benefits, I would call them, right? So this is something you do completely new in a completely new way, and people start using your tool, your product. They just couldn't believe it. Just think it's so simple, right? That they used 5 tools before or whatever. And I guess that's important to really test that, to understand the market, to understand your customer, the benefits, and your competition. Those 3 things. And that means you will basically shape your product with this knowledge. You will shape your team with this knowledge. You will shape your communication with this knowledge, because it will basically determine your first, or it will be kind of your first strategy, right? That's important to take your time, create a really compelling value proposition.
Thank you. Great response. My next question, Boris, is about the role of investment and funding within Growth Unlimited. How do you guide startups through this process?
I would say it's a bit a hard question to answer, because the current economical environment is pretty much against startups and early stage investments. Like we have, it completely changed in the last couple of months. So that obviously affects as well. So what we currently do, because I mean, as I mentioned, like the company Growth Unlimited that invests into startups as well has been founded just 6 months ago. So we're as well building our track record. We have now 2 companies at the stage where we want to invest, or we're currently investing. As well, we seek for co-investors there, and we see it becomes harder, right? So it's a lot of work. You really need to talk to many people. Lots of investors just are currently waiting, right, or backing their portfolio companies, so not investing in new ventures. So it's not easy. So there's not, like the super tip I can give, and everybody gets the funding. It's really hard work, right? And iterate the communication on your pitch deck and so forth, make a compelling case out of it.
No, I agree. It's a lot of pounding the pavement and wearing out your shoes before you can actually find the right investor. You're so right. So time for 2 more questions.
If there are any investors out there, please ping me, right? Great cases currently.
We'll do that, certainly. I have time for 2 more questions. How do you stay updated in the ever-evolving startup ecosystem? And how do you ensure Growth Unlimited remains relevant and effective?
Yeah. Well, to the first question, I read a lot and I listen a lot to podcasts and so forth. I read, like daily on medium.com, for example. I love podcasts like 20 VC, for example. And I just, try to capture all the things out there. I guess it's really the worst thing to happen if you don't know what's happening anymore, right? So if you just stand still, basically. So it's really important to grow, to learn. I talk a lot to other people, founders, VCs, and so forth. For us to communicate, we use blog posts, for example. We use LinkedIn as well to post. We have our newsletter, as already mentioned. So we do a lot with content. I participate, for example, in as well podium discussions or events and so forth, where I can present my ideas. So different channels, but it's important to remain active. And like to talk to the audience out there,
Yes.
because especially in our case, where we need to, like we like to work with really early stage founders, let's say founders with just an idea. And usually they're not so active yet, right? So how to find them? So it's important that they actually come to us.
Yeah, well said. And my last question to you, Boris, and this is for many, many people who will listen to our conversation. A lot of them are either startup founders or people who are aspiring to get into an entrepreneurship role. What would you say are 3 lessons you would want a lot of these young founders to take away from your amazing journey?
Well, first of all, at the beginning, focus on reaching product market fit only, right? Don't do the other things. Don't create, the 17th iteration of the pitch deck or whatever. Really focus on getting there. Everything will be much easier. Then one other thing is you can't do it alone. So seek for help, seek for support, and seek for support by entrepreneurs who have been there. Because only they will understand, like all the feelings you have, like all how hard it is actually. And then one thing, what I see helps tremendously is writing down and testing all the hypotheses. Start with the problem space first to really kind of try to understand your customer, write it down and test it, and then go to the solution space and test it before you build, right? You can do a lot before you actually build a product.
Well said. And on that note, Boris, and your 3 wonderful lessons, I love the first one, which is focus on product market fit before you start looking at all other kinds of attributes. Second, which is so important, seek help, find a mentor, get support. And the third one was write and test your hypothesis. Thank you so much for speaking to me about your own amazing journey. Thank you for speaking to me about Growth Unlimited and so many different aspects of the startup ecosystem that you are now supporting. And I'm sure from your 2 startups that you are currently involved in, it will grow into 20 and 200, I'm sure. Good luck to you and all the best.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.